God. Been just so too long. Let me remind. You gotta remind them who he is. I gotta remind these niggas who the f*** he is. So let me remind them then.
Let's start with what nobody can ignore. Cardi B looks different. Not physically, not stylistically, energetically. There is a noticeable shift in her presence, and if you've watched even one clip from this tour, you felt it. The stage doesn't lie. Energy doesn't lie. And right now, Cardi looks lighter, freer, unburdened. Because whether she says his name directly or not, the year of the snake comment was not subtle. When she went live and started talking about last year being the year of the snake, about shedding skin, about dead weight, about new beginnings, everybody understood the assignment. That wasn't astrology talk. That was closure talk. And here's the real foundation of everything we're watching unfold. Single Cardi and relationship Cardi are two completely different women. When she was tied to Stefon, there was something heavy following her around. You could see it in interviews. You could hear it in her tone. Even when she smiled, it didn't feel full. It felt managed. But now, she's performing like she has something to prove. And at the same time, like she doesn't need to prove anything to anybody. That's the difference. When she hit that stage and said, "Let me remind y'all who I am," that wasn't just hype. That was reclamation. That was a woman stepping back into her identity after trying to shrink herself for a situation that clearly wasn't giving her what she needed. And the timing matters. She mentioned that around late February, early March last year, she wasn't in a good place. Not depressed, but mentally scattered. Work wasn't flowing, energy was off. Something felt unstable. We'll now connect that to the timeline of when she started dealing with Stefon. February, March. That overlap is interesting. She said she put her head in the game and look what she accomplished from then until now. That's not accidental wording. That's someone who recognizes that once she removed distractions, everything aligned again. And here's what makes this deeper. She admitted she hasn't been this happy in a long time. Not a few months. Not since last summer. A long time. That statement carries weight. Because when someone says that publicly, they're quietly admitting that whatever they were sitting in before wasn't it. Now let's talk about the snake energy. When she said last year was the year of the snake, and snakes shed their skin and represent new beginnings, that was poetic. But it was also pointed. She specifically mentioned getting rid of old energy, old weight, and we all know she wasn't talking about a random zodiac sign. The implication was clear. Stefon was the dead weight. And here's where it gets even more layered. The relationship moved fast. Fast enough that people started doing math. She began dating him around February or March. The baby arrived late October, early November. That's a quick situation. And when something accelerates that fast, it usually means one of two things: intense chemistry or rushed decisions. Academics online, and yes, the internet detectives were loud, pointed out that when things start quickly under chaotic circumstances, foundations can be shaky from the beginning. Add to that the previous accusations from Offset suggesting Cardi was dealing with someone while pregnant, and suddenly the timeline starts raising eyebrows. Now we are not stating anything as confirmed fact, but when timelines move at lightning speed, questions naturally follow. And then there's the young Miami angle. There were rumors that Stefon was allegedly entertaining multiple women at once. Selena Powell allegedly put him on blast. Allegations of overlapping situations. Allegations of mixed signals. Again, alleged. But even alleged chaos can destabilize something that was already moving too fast. Because here's the truth Cardi might not have said directly but hinted at. Changed energy means nothing if actions don't change. And from everything that surfaced, the actions were not matching the words. That's exhausting, especially when you're a woman juggling kids, career, public pressure, and constant scrutiny. Which brings us to the moment that hit the hardest. Cardi said she's going through something personal, And she made it very clear it's not about a relationship. That's important. She repeated it. No relationship stuff? So what is it? We don't know. And she wasn't ready to explain. But here's what stood out. She said if she wasn't receiving so much love from fans right now, she would be extremely broken. Extremely broken? That's not light wording. That's someone fighting something heavy privately while showing up publicly at full power. And this is where the contrast becomes undeniable. Old Cardi might have cancelled the tour, pulled back, sat in heartbreak, disappeared for a minute. Instead, she doubled down. She performed harder. She leaned into work. She talked about putting your head in the game even when you're uncomfortable. Or if I could do it, you definitely can. That's not just motivational speech. That's survival. And maybe that's the biggest shift of all. She's not spiraling publicly. She's channeling it. She's bringing her kids on tour. She's planning logistics. She's thinking about comfort, stability, routine. That's a woman prioritizing motherhood and peace over chaos and validation. Which leads to another interesting silence. Where is Hennessy? The tour is happening, Cardi is trending, but her sister has been noticeably quiet. No loud reposts, no heavy support, no public presence. That silence feels different, especially when industry friends like Normani and others have been visible and supportive. Is it tension? Is it personal growth? Is it something private? We don't know. But the absence is noticeable. And when you combine everything, the snake energy, the timeline questions, the personal struggle, the missing sister presence, it paints a picture of a woman restructuring her entire emotional ecosystem. Not just leaving a relationship, resetting her life. Single Cardi isn't just single, she's recalibrated, and the stage is proving it every night. Now let's slow this down and really look at the timeline, because this is the part that keeps coming back up in conversations. Cardi herself said that around late February to early March last year she wasn't in a good place mentally. Not depressed, but scattered, overwhelmed, off balance. Work energy wasn't aligned. That same window is when she began dealing with Stefon. That overlap is important. Because when someone says they weren't mentally steady during the exact time they entered a relationship, it raises a quiet but powerful question. Was that connection built from stability or vulnerability? Fast relationships aren't automatically bad. Sometimes intense chemistry can move quickly and still be solid. But when you add public pressure, pregnancy timelines, outside rumors, and past relationship trauma into the mix, fast becomes fragile. The baby arrived late October, early November. If things started around February or March, that's a rapid acceleration. And the internet noticed. People started doing the math. Not maliciously, just observantly. Because when public figures move quickly, the audience tries to understand the foundation. Or add to that the previous public tension with Offset and the accusations that Cardi may have been entertaining someone while pregnant, and suddenly the narrative becomes layered. We're not stating confirmation. We're acknowledging context. And context shapes perception. What also made things shaky were the alleged rumors surrounding Stefon himself. There were whispers of multiple women being involved at overlapping times, allegations of mixed signals, names floating around online. Even if half of that isn't true, even if it's exaggerated internet noise, it still creates instability in a new relationship, because relationships thrive on clarity. And clarity is hard to maintain when rumors are constant. Now think about what Cardi said during her live. She talked about shedding old energy, dead weight, new beginnings. She didn't look bitter when she said it. She looked relieved. Relief is different from anger. Relief means you were holding something heavy for too long. And when she said she hasn't been this happy in a long time, that tells us something deeper than just, I'm single now. It tells us she may have been trying to convince herself something was working when it wasn't. We've all seen it before. When you're inside a situation, you justify things. He's trying. It'll get better. It's just bad timing. But the moment you step outside of it, everything becomes obvious. And sometimes clarity feels like oxygen. Now let's talk about the part she didn't fully explain. She said she's going through something personal, and she repeated clearly that it's not relationship related. That's interesting, because if it's not about Stefon, then what is it? Family, health, stress, legal, something spiritual? She didn't elaborate, but she did say that if she wasn't receiving love from fans right now, she would be extremely broken. That line hit hard, because it implies whatever she's dealing with is heavy enough to break her spirit if she didn't have distraction and support. And here's where it connects to the tour. The tour isn't just a performance schedule, it's therapy. When she's on stage, she's in control. She's powerful, she's validated, she's celebrated. That's grounding. And you can physically see that grounding in her body language now. Her posture is different. Her expressions are lighter. She laughs more naturally. Energy doesn't lie. When she said, "If I could do it, you definitely can," that wasn't just motivational talk. That was someone who pulled herself out of something dark and is still actively fighting to stay steady. And here's something subtle but powerful. She didn't bash Stefon directly. She didn't drag him. She didn't create chaos. She simply repositioned herself. That's growth. Because the old Cardi, and let's be honest, might have gone scorched earth. Public arguments, direct call-outs, emotional back and forth. This time, she cut it clean. And that suggests something important. She's done. Not temporarily upset, not taking space. Done. Now the real question people are asking is this: could he try to come back? Because history shows that sometimes when someone sees you thriving without them, they circle back, especially if the relationship boosted their visibility. But this version of Cardi feels different. She's not operating from attachment right now, she's operating from clarity. And clarity is hard to undo. There's also the Hennessy factor. Her sister's quiet presence is noticeable, not necessarily negative, just quiet. In moments like this, sisters usually show up loudly, but silence can mean many things. Privacy, focus on her own projects, internal family matters. We can't assume tension, but we can acknowledge the shift. And when you combine all of this, the rapid timeline, the alleged outside noise, the personal struggles she won't detail, the snake energy symbolism, the visible emotional reset. It paints the picture of someone who went through a fast, intense chapter and decided not to repeat it. She's not spiraling, she's recalibrating. And recalibration is powerful because it means lessons were learned. The biggest takeaway from all of this? Cardi isn't reacting, she's rebuilding. That's different energy. That sentence is the real headline, not the rumors, not the timeline, not the alleged overlap. When Cardi said, "I haven't been this happy in such a long time," that's the part that changed everything. Because when someone admits they haven't felt happiness in a long time, they're quietly revealing that something has been draining them for longer than we realized. And here's the key word: long. Not a few months, not this past season, a long time. That suggests this wasn't just about Stefon. This might have been about layers: relationship stress, public pressure, motherhood responsibilities, career expectations, online noise, family dynamics. Sometimes unhappiness isn't one event, it's accumulation. And when she said she finally feels on top of the world again, that didn't sound performative. It sounded relieved. Now let's talk about fast relationships and why they hit harder when they fall apart. When something moves quickly, emotionally, physically, publicly, it creates intensity. Intensity can feel like destiny. It can feel powerful. But intensity is not the same as stability. Fast connections often skip the slow building stage. You don't get time to test compatibility under calm conditions. You jump straight into merging lives. And when there are kids involved, that pressure multiplies. If the foundation wasn't fully solid, cracks show faster. And based on Cardi's energy shift, it feels like cracks were there. But here's what's different this time. She didn't crash publicly. She didn't spiral online. And she didn't give the internet chaos. She got on stage. She put her head in the game. She channeled it into work. That's not avoidance. That's transformation. Because sometimes the best way to move through something is motion. And the stage is motion. Now let's revisit the year of the snake moment, because people treated it like just symbolism. But it was layered. She said snakes shed their skin. Snakes represent new beginnings. But shedding skin is uncomfortable. It's vulnerable. It's messy before it's clean. When a snake sheds, it has to separate from something that once protected it. That metaphor applies perfectly to relationships. You outgrow something that once felt safe. You detach from something that once felt protective. And the shedding doesn't mean the snake is weak. It means it's evolving. Cardi used that language intentionally. That wasn't random astrology talk. That was a coded message, and she followed it with visible results. Her performances are sharper. Her confidence feels organic. Her laughter on stage isn't forced. And maybe the most telling sign? She's thinking about logistics for her kids. Bus space, comfort, stability. Making sure everyone feels good on tour. That's grounded energy. That's not someone emotionally spiraling. That's someone protecting their peace. Now let's circle back to the something personal comment. She made it very clear it's not relationship related. So what could it be? Here's the important thing. Sometimes when someone exits a draining relationship, other issues surface. When you're inside chaos, you're distracted. When you get out, you suddenly feel everything else. Maybe it's family stress, maybe it's business pressure, maybe it's health, maybe it's something she's not ready to share because it involves people who didn't sign up for public scrutiny. The fact that she refused to detail it tells us it's sensitive. And the fact that she said she would be extremely broken without fan love tells us it's heavy. But she's still standing. And that's strength. Now let's address the real question people keep whispering. Is she truly done? History shows that sometimes relationships re-enter when nostalgia kicks in, when loneliness creeps in, when apologies come with promises. But here's what feels different this time. She doesn't sound nostalgic. She sounds clear. There's no longing in her tone. No, maybe in the future. No, we're working through things. Just clarity. And clarity usually means the decision wasn't impulsive. It means it was processed. Also, and this is subtle but important, she didn't frame herself as a victim. She framed herself as someone who made a decision for her peace. That's empowerment energy. Now let's touch on Hennessy briefly again. The silence remains noticeable. But sometimes siblings go quiet when they know something is bigger than social media. Support doesn't always have to be public. Still, in a public era like this, absence gets analysed. And when fans are already sensitive to energy shifts, every detail feels magnified. But here's the bigger picture. Cardi is not in survival mode right now. She's in reset mode. And reset mode is powerful because it's intentional. She's not reacting to drama, she's redesigning her environment. She's choosing movement over stagnation. She's choosing work over wallowing. She's choosing motherhood presence over emotional chaos. And that might be the strongest version of her yet, because happiness after heaviness hits different. It's not naive happiness. It's earned. If you want part 4, we'll break down why women often glow up after removing emotional weight, whether Stefon could attempt a comeback, what this era means for her next album, and why this might be her most powerful transformation yet. There's something people don't talk about enough. When a woman removes emotional dead weight, her entire aura shifts. It's not just about being single. It's about clarity. It's about breathing again. And Cardi right now, she's breathing. You can see it in the way she moves on stage, the way she talks, the way she laughs without forcing it, the way she interacts with fans. There's no heaviness in her eyes. Because here's the reality. Emotional stress is visible. When someone is trying to hold a relationship together that isn't aligned, it drains them in small ways. You lose mental space, you lose creative flow, you lose that spark. Cardi admitted last year around February/March she wasn't in a good place mentally. Work felt scattered. Her focus was off. That's not coincidence timing. When your mental isn't steady, everything feels heavier, especially love. And sometimes we convince ourselves something is working because we want it to work. But when it ends, you realize how much energy you were using just to maintain it. That's the glow-up effect. The moment you remove the weight, you don't even realize how much lighter you are until you start moving freely again. And that's exactly what we're watching. Single Cardi isn't just single, she's sharper. Her performances aren't just good, they're hungry. She's reminding people who she is without screaming about it. Now let's address the uncomfortable question. Could Stefon try to come back? History shows that when someone sees you thriving without them, it can trigger something, especially if that person benefited from proximity to your platform. When you glow up publicly, it's hard for the other party not to notice. But here's what's different this time. Cardi doesn't look emotionally attached anymore. She's not hinting at "we'll see." She's not dropping cryptic longing posts. She's not engaging in back-and-forth energy. She shed the skin, and once a snake sheds skin, it doesn't crawl back into it. That metaphor wasn't random. It was final. Now let's talk about why this era might actually elevate her music. Artists create differently when they're in heartbreak versus when they're in clarity. Heartbreak music is raw. Clarity music is powerful. If she channels this reset into her next project, we might get her most focused body of work yet. Because when your personal life stops draining you, your creative life expands. She even said it herself. Look at everything she accomplished between February last year and now. That's productivity after chaos. That's growth. And here's something else that stood out. She talked about wanting a present father, stability. Someone who shows up. That's not shade, that's standards. When a woman verbalizes standards publicly after walking away, it usually means she's done lowering them. And that changes the dating game entirely. She's not looking for excitement, she's looking for consistency. And consistency doesn't move fast, which brings us full circle to the fast timeline conversation. Fast relationships feel intoxicating, but long-term stability requires slow-building trust. And maybe this was the lesson. Maybe this chapter wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was clarity training. Now let's talk about the kids. Her decision to bring them on tour isn't just cute, it's intentional. She wants them close. She wants grounding. She wants real-life love around her while she's navigating whatever personal storm she hinted at. That's emotional maturity. Instead of isolating, she's integrating. Instead of shutting down, she's building a safe environment around herself, and that's strength. Now here's the bigger cultural point. Women in the public eye are often criticized for leaving relationships. Why didn't she try harder? Why did she move so fast? Why does she always attract the wrong type? But what we rarely acknowledge is how hard it is to leave when you've already merged lives. Especially with children. Especially under public scrutiny. Especially when everyone is watching your decisions. Leaving isn't weakness, it's courage. And staying active instead of spiraling. That's growth. Cardi isn't playing victim. She's not running a heartbreak campaign. She's running a comeback era. And it feels intentional. Now about Hennessy again, because that silence is still interesting. It could mean absolutely nothing dramatic. It could mean she's focused on her own ventures. It could mean family matters are being handled privately. But in moments like this, our fans look for emotional signals, and the lack of loud sister presence is something people are clocking. Still, absence doesn't automatically mean tension. It just means privacy. And maybe privacy is exactly what Cardi is protecting right now. Because when someone says they would be extremely broken without fan love, That tells us something is heavy behind the scenes. But heavy doesn't mean hopeless. Heavy just means real. And she's still standing, still performing, still smiling, still planning, still mothering, still evolving. And that's the transformation. This isn't chaotic Cardi. This is strategic Cardi. She removed the snake energy. She reset her environment. She redirected her focus. And she's glowing in a way that feels earned, not performative. So the real question now isn't whether she's done with Stefon. The real question is, are we witnessing her strongest era yet? Because this version of her, focused, clear, protective of her peace, that's dangerous, in the best way. Let's zoom all the way out, because this isn't really about Stefon anymore. It's about transformation. When you remove the names, the rumors, the timeline math, the alleged overlap, the sister silence, what we're left with is a woman who publicly admitted she hasn't been happy in a long time and is finally feeling like herself again. That's bigger than relationship tea. That's identity restoration. And here's why that matters. For the past few years, Cardi has been juggling public marriage drama, internet narratives, pregnancy, career pauses, constant scrutiny, motherhood, industry expectations. That's a lot. When you stack pressure on top of pressure, sometimes you don't even realize how far away you drift from yourself. Then one day you wake up and realize the version of you that felt light hasn't shown up in a while. And that's what this feels like. This tour isn't just a tour, it's reclamation. She's not performing for validation. She's performing because she feels free. And freedom shows. Let's talk about that line again. I haven't been this happy in such a long time. That wasn't casual, that was reflective. Because happiness, after heaviness, feels different. It feels grounded. It feels earned. It feels like you fought your way back to yourself. And here's the part people need to understand. When a woman chooses peace over attachment, that's not weakness, that's power. Because attachment is comfortable, even if it's draining, even if it's unstable, even if it's inconsistent. Peace requires courage, and Cardi chose peace. Now let's address the elephant in the room one last time. Could Stefon try to re-enter? Possibly. But this era feels sealed. There's no longing in her tone. No, we're figuring it out. No emotional ambiguity, just clarity. And clarity doesn't usually reverse itself. Now let's talk about the bigger shift. Cardi isn't chasing love right now. She's stabilizing her environment. She's bringing her kids on tour. She's thinking about bus logistics. She's prioritizing comfort and safety. She's grounding herself in motherhood. That's mature energy. That's not someone spiraling. That's someone restructuring their foundation. And when your foundation stabilizes, everything else levels up. Music hits harder. Confidence increases. Boundaries strengthen. Decision-making sharpens. This could easily become her strongest creative era. Because when your emotional space clears up, creativity expands. And here's something subtle but important. She didn't drag him. She didn't go on a public attack campaign. She didn't create drama for headlines. She simply reframed her narrative. That's growth. The old Cardi might have aired everything out. This Cardi, she speaks in coded metaphors and keeps it moving. Snake energy, dead weight, new beginnings. Those aren't chaotic words. They're symbolic closure. Now let's revisit the something personal one more time. She was clear it's not relationship-related. That tells us two things. Whatever it is, it's separate from Stefon. It's heavy enough that she didn't want speculation tied to romance. That shows emotional boundaries. She controlled the narrative before the internet could twist it. That's intentional. And even in the middle of that personal storm, she's choosing to show up. That's resilience. Now let's address Hennessy briefly in conclusion. Silence doesn't always mean distance. Sometimes it means protection. Sometimes it means we're handling this privately. And sometimes it simply means growth on both sides. We don't need to assume drama to acknowledge difference. Because here's the bigger takeaway. Cardi isn't collapsing, she's evolving. And evolution doesn't look loud. It looks focused. It looks steady. It looks like a woman who finally realized her energy is too valuable to waste. This isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about proving to herself that she can rebuild. And she is. Single Cardi isn't reckless. Single Cardi is strategic. Single Cardi is lighter. Single Cardi is happier. And if this energy continues, we're about to see a version of her that's more disciplined, more confident, and more intentional than ever before. That's dangerous, in the best way. Because once someone learns how to choose peace over chaos, they don't go back easily. And right now, she looks like she's not going back. But I want to know what you think. Do you think this is truly the end of that chapter? Do you believe Stefon could resurface? What do you think she meant when she said she hasn't been happy in a long time? And what do you think is going on behind the scenes with that something personal? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everything. If you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications because we break this down every week. No chaos, just clarity. And if there's another story you want analysed next, comment it below. See you in the next one.